Hi, good morning. My name is Jim Vermillion with Valley Ski Tools, and this morning we have Ed Binnie as our guest. He's going to do a little hot air welding base repair with us and go through the tools and show us what it takes to do and complete a nice hot air base weld.
Tools we'll need is a sealing base welder, plastic welding tool that we carry at Valley Ski Tools. You need some pre-cut 3mm base wire. You'll need a razor knife, a little bit of shop roll, preferably 120 or 80 grit. You'll use a Surform and a 4mm stainless scraper.
Okay, so where we're at now, we've got a repair here, a base core shot that we cut into the ski, and what Ed has done is gone around the perimeter of the repair with a razor knife, cutting at about a 45-degree angle. Once we get this trimmed out, we will work it over with some 120 grit aluminum oxide shop roll paper to rough it up so we get a little better adhesion when we put the beads of weld down.
What we're looking for is to create little hairs on the surface for the weld to stick to. It'll melt the hairs to the weld rod, and your base repair will stay stuck better. Okay, we've cleaned our repair. We'll blow out any dust. What we want to do is we want to put in and pre-cut our weld rod to roughly 1 foot lengths. Okay, to start, what we'll do is we'll place an anchor weld right down the center by placing it in the cool part of the tube, putting it out front about an inch forward, and running it through the center of the weld, creating a anchor weld. That one will be done at 90 degrees to the base. The rest of the welds are going to be done 45 degrees approximately to the anchor weld. Flipping it around, always using a cool piece of weld rod to put in the welder. Work one side and work the other. Always grabbing a cool new piece of rod each time you place a rod or a weld.
Now when you're cutting that off, Ed, you're lifting the tip of the welding unit up and pinching it off? Is that
correct. We're rolling it over on the soft weld material and pinching it off. What we're looking for is to stack the welds side by side. The weld is actually melting the bottom of the rod, which is in the base itself, and the top is staying solid. Won't allow any air bubbles to come up. Now we need to let that completely cool. Once your weld is completely cooled, we can now remove the excess material. By using a razor knife to cut the long ends off, being very careful not to cut the base, we'll remove the excess ends. Lift them up, just cut them with the knife. Now we moved to a 4-inch Surform blade. Flexing it slightly and removing the bulk of the material. By flexing it, it'll keep it on the weld itself and it won't cut into the base. Careful not to cut into the base. Once we removed most of the material and got it flat on the top, we're going to move to our 4mm tool steel scraper. And this will be our final tool that we'll need. You'll want to work the tool steel scraper anywhere from 30 to 45 degrees Keep the tool, steel scraper moving. Going from the middle to the ends till it's smooth one way, and then reverse the other way.
At some point, run it through a stone grinder.
Correct.
And resurface the base, where at that time it'll clean this up substantially and get it perfectly flat with the rest of the base.
You have a weld near the edge and there's a lot of metal exposed. What you can do is you can use some gap-filling super glue to adhere to the metal, let it dry, sand it, and the base weld will stick to it.
So you're just putting a little bead right along the metal edge?
On the metal itself, yes.
Okay.
You can use, to make it dry a little quicker, you can use a little bit of NCF Quick Dry Accelerator for the super glue. Once that's completely dry, you actually sand the super glue. Sanding the base material at the same time, as we did with the other weld. Your anchor weld now will be against the edge to start. Same thing, start about an inch ahead. Lay your anchor weld, and then hold your welder at 45 degrees to the anchor weld. That'll melt everything together. Always switching to a cool piece of welding rod.
So when you turn your welder on, Ed, you're going to know that it's at operating temperature when you can't hold your finger in front of that barrel for more than about a second.
That's correct. You also want to start it at least at about middle range on the temperature setting.
Yes.
About a 5 to start with, and you can go hotter or colder.
Perfect.
So to practice, get a nice long piece of weld rod, a little over a foot. Stick it in the end of the tube, the welding tube. Push it out forward and start out real fast, and then just slow down until you pick up the right speed. The correct speed is going to be when it's melting the bottom of the rod, but the top of the rod is staying firm. We're looking for a reverse mushroom type of shape that's heating the bottom, which adheres to the base, but keeping the top cool, which keeps the hot tool off of the base.
So if people are having difficulty with the rod melting in the welding unit itself, it's because they're not moving the material through the speed tip quick enough.
Correct. Either the tip's too hot or they're not moving it quick enough.
Okay.
Push it out forward a couple of inches, start moving quick, and then slow down to get the right speed.